Hello everyone, welcome to the first video on this channel, and in this video I will rank EF5 tornadoes in the United States. The EF5 rating is the highest rating a tornado can receive, but which ones are superior? We'll discuss that. I ranked these tornadoes based on aerial coverage, length, that is length times width, and the monetary damage in modern day dollars. I will include links of the sources I use in the description below, and I will be ranking these tornadoes on a tier list that's going to be S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, and D tier. There have been 59 EF5 tornadoes since 1953. And so this is going to be part one of this video that will cover through the year 1973. So if you enjoy this video, leave a like, and subscribe, and we will get started. And I'm going to start with Waco, Texas on May 11th, 1953. And this tornado is going in B tier. The aerial coverage of this tornado was 7.59 square miles and traveled 23 miles in central Texas. And it caused about $310 million in monetary damage. And this tornado paved the way for the modern warning infrastructure. And so that is kind of the legacy that this tornado left. Next, we have Fort Rice, North Dakota on May 29th, 1953. And this tornado is going in C tier. The aerial coverage was about 5 square miles, and it traveled 14.8 miles in North Dakota with a width of about a third of a mile. And this tornado leveled most of the town back in 1953. So a very, very powerful and damaging tornado indeed. But it's a smaller tornado, so it gets a slightly lower rating. So the next one we have Flint, Michigan on June 8th, 1953, and this tornado is going in B tier. The path area is 9.45 square miles, and this tornado traveled almost 19 miles across Flint, Michigan, and it was about half a mile wide. And this tornado caused about $125 million in damage. Next, we have Adair, Iowa, back on June 27th, 1953, and this tornado is going in D tier. This was the smallest F5 tornado on record, with a path area of 5,000 square miles. It's only traveled a tenth of a mile, and was a very, very small tornado. The damage caused was about $3.09 million. And so while that's a very expensive tornado, compared to all the other tornadoes on this list, that's a it's one of the lesser damaging tornadoes. And so next we have Vicksburg, Mississippi on December 5th, 1953, and that tornado is going in B tier. This tornado covered 2.52 square miles, and it traveled about 9 miles in Mississippi, and with a path width of 500 yards. And this tornado caused over $200 million in damage. Next, we have Blackwell, Oklahoma on May 25th, 1955, and this tornado was going in C tier. The aerial coverage of this tornado was 7.84 square miles, and this tornado traveled 28 miles across Oklahoma with a maximum width of about a quarter of a mile. And the stats from this tornado is this tornado was actually the first F5 tornado from this supercell. And so the storm that produced this tornado is going to produce another F5 tornado here coming up. And this tornado produced an extreme amount of lightning. There's been some surveys, some research done on just how much electrical output came from this storm, and it's a pretty enormous amount. And so the next tornado, this came from the same supercell, is going to be Udall, Kansas, from the same day, same storm, and this tornado is going in A tier. This was a much larger tornado, and the aerial coverage is 42 square miles, and this tornado traveled 56 miles with a maximum width of 3/4 of a mile. And it's been reported that there was complete destruction of property from this tornado. So a very damaging tornado and a much larger tornado. And so I'm ranking this one much higher in the A tier. Next, we have Grand Rapids, Michigan from April 3rd, 1956, and this tornado is going in C tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado is about 11 square miles, and this tornado tracked about 48 miles and a maximum width of about a quarter of a mile. And some of the stats from this tornado is that the floor tiles have been scoured, vehicles were tossed, and they were beyond recognition. So there was extreme amount of damage from this tornado in Grand Rapids. And so next we're going to have Ruskin Heights, Missouri, from May 20th, 1957, and this tornado is going in B tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado is about 17.35 square miles, and it traveled 69.4 miles with a maximum width of about a quarter of a mile. Some of the stats from this tornado is that this tornado occurred in what was likely going to be considered the triple point. That is where three different air masses come together. And so strong kinematics and dynamics really helped generate this tornado. Next, we're going to have Fargo, North Dakota from June 20th, 1957, and this tornado is going in B tier. This is the northernmost EF5 tornado in the United States, and this tornado had an aerial coverage of 1.17 square miles. And so it traveled a total of 9 miles across North Dakota with a maximum width of 0.13 miles. And this is one of the tornadoes that Ted Fujita studied. And this tornado caused about $250 million in damage, which gives it the B tier rating. And next we have Sunfield, Illinois from December 8th, 1957. And this tornado is going in B tier as well. Wait, no, it's going in D tier. This tornado is a pretty small tornado. The aerial coverage was about 0.59 square miles. And this tornado only tracked about 5 miles with a maximum width of just over a tenth of a mile. Not much is known about this tornado, but it did occur in December. And so this tornado occurred in an environment that's characterized as a high shear / low cape environment. And so that means there's a low amount of instability, but there's a very strong wind shear that'll compensate for the tornado. So while it was very small, this tornado ended up actually being really powerful. And so next we have Menominee, Wisconsin from June 4th, 1958, and this tornado is going in A tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado was 16.85 square miles, and this tornado tracked over 33 miles and had a maximum width of half a mile. What I'm giving this tornado the A tier is based on the amount of damage that this tornado did. And this tornado caused over $700 million in damage, and debris was reportedly tossed about 75 miles away from the tornado. So this was a very powerful tornado to lift the debris and carry it that far. And next we have Pragu, Oklahoma from May 5th, 1960, and this tornado is also going in A tier. The aerial coverage was about 32 square miles with a path length of 72 miles and a maximum width of almost half a mile. This tornado occurred in a classic Great Plains setup, and the environment that this tornado occurred in was a very high parameter spacing. So the instability and the wind shear was very, very high with this setup. And this tornado caused about $7 million to an oil refinery. So that's pretty significant. Next we have Wichita Falls, Texas from April 3rd, 1964, and this tornado is going in B tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado was about 1.4 square miles with a length of about 5 miles. And this tornado caused about $144 million in damage, which is going to give it the B tier rating. Next, we have Bradshaw, Nebraska from May 5th, 1964, and this tornado is going in A tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado is 39.85 square miles, and this tornado tracked almost 80 miles across Nebraska with a maximum width of half a mile. Next, we have Gregory, South Dakota. This tornado is going in A tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado is 30 square miles, and the maximum width from this tornado was a mile wide. And so this is a large tornado in a significant outbreak. In the same system that produced this tornado, produced a significant amount of snowfall later during the event. And next we have Jackson, Mississippi from March 3rd, 1966. And this tornado is going in A tier. So there's a little bit of discrepancy on the track of this tornado because it's unknown whether this tornado took one continuous track or if it may have been a tornado that is known as a tornado family. So it may be multiple tornadoes during this track. So it's unknown on the aerial coverage of this tornado, but this tornado did a lot of damage in Jackson, Mississippi. This tornado caused about $600 million in damage, which gives this tornado an A ranking tier. And so next we have Topeka, Kansas, June 8th, 1966. And this tornado is going in S tier. So this tornado has a superior rating in my view. And this tornado has an aerial coverage of 11 square miles and tracked 22 miles across Kansas with a maximum width of half a mile. And the reason why I'm giving this tornado the S rating is because it's due to the damage that this caused. This is the most damaging tornado up to its time. And this tornado produced $1.8 billion in damage in Topeka, Kansas. And so this is an extremely, extremely damaging tornado. This is what's giving it the S tier rating. And so next is going to be Belmont, Iowa from October 14th, 1966. And this tornado is going in C tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado is 5.53 square miles with a maximum width of a little over half a mile, and the length was 9.7 miles. And this is the only F5 tornado to ever occur in the month of October. So that stands out. And next we have Gallipolis, Ohio from April 23rd, 1968. And this tornado is going in C tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado was 7.82 square miles with a length of 34 miles and a maximum width of almost a quarter of a mile. And the damage this tornado caused was $21.4 million. And next we have Charles City, Iowa from May 5th, 1968. And this tornado is going in B tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado was about 21 square miles, and it traveled about 62 miles across Iowa. And the stats from this tornado is this tornado caused about $262 million in damage. And then next we have Maynard, Iowa from the same day, May 15th, 1968. And this tornado is going in B tier. I believe this is from a separate storm, but it's occurred from the same event. And this tornado is a little bit smaller, and the aerial coverage is 3.67 square miles. And this tornado tracked about 13 miles across Iowa. And this tornado only caused $181 million in damage. Next, we have Tracy, Minnesota from June 13th, 1968. And this tornado is going in D tier. This was another pretty small tornado. The aerial coverage is less than a square mile. And the maximum length is, this tornado tracked about 9 miles. And the maximum width is less than a tenth of a mile. And so that's what gives it the D tier rating. Next, we have Lubbock, Texas from May 11th, 1970. And this tornado is going in S tier. This was the westernmost EF5 tornado on record. And this tornado was rated... In this tornado, the aerial coverage was about 6.38 square miles. And the length of this tornado, it tracked 8.5 miles with a maximum width of 3/4 of a mile. And what's giving this tornado the S tier rating is it caused up to $1 billion in damage. And also, this tornado was originally rated an F6 tornado, Ted Fujita downgraded it due to the fact that an F6 tornado is really unrealistic. It doesn't really occur. The amount of damage that would have to occur with an F6 tornado just doesn't happen. So that's why Ted Fujita later downgraded this tornado to an F5, but it still counts and still receives the S tier rating. Next, we have Delhi, Louisiana, from February 21st, 1971, and this tornado is going in B tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado was 30 square miles with a maximum width of about a quarter of a mile, and this tornado tracked over 100 miles across Louisiana and then later into Mississippi. And this tornado caused $377 million in damage. Next, and the last tornado from this video is going to be Valley Mills, Texas, on May 6, 1973, and this tornado is going in D tier. The aerial coverage from this tornado is almost 2/3 of a square mile, and the maximum width of this tornado is less than 1/10 of a mile, and the length is about 10 miles. So a very small tornado, which gives it the D tier rating. And that is going to be it for this video. If you enjoy the video, leave a like, and I will see you on the next video.